Hey guys, it's Stephanie, and today I wanted to talk about two books that probably seem like they're really different, but they have a small thing in common. So let's talk about the small thing they have in common first. So the two books I'm going to talk about today are The Particular Sadness of Lemon Cake by Amy Bender and Horns by Joe Hill. One of them I think is referred to as kind of a whimsy magical realism, and one of them is considered horror, maybe a supernatural murder mystery, and you're thinking, wow, that is two opposite ends of the spectrum there. I'll get there. Hold on. I want to talk about when I was a kid. So when I was a kid, I always thought that the greatest superpower ever would be to be able to read people's minds, a la Charles Xavier. I wasn't creative enough to implement the mind control part of it. I just thought the reading of the minds would be amazing. And I realized that I wanted this power so bad because as a child, I felt like adults were never being honest with me. I felt like all the information I received from them was very heavily filtered into what they thought would be appropriate to tell a child, which is basically the experience of being a child. And I had this desire to know just the absolute truth about everything. But now, as I'm older, I realize that I absolutely would not want to be able to read people's minds. First of all, because I have social media, and now I know that nothing interesting is going on in people's minds because I have Twitter. I have really overestimated the amount of interesting things going on between people's ears. And second of all, there's just a lot of things that for my own well-being, I feel like I would not want to know. And that is the thing that brings these two very different stories together that I wanted to talk about today. Would you want to be able to know things that you weren't supposed to know? I'm gonna spoiler alert, answer is no. So the first book I wanted to talk about is Amy Bender's The Particular Sadness of Lemon Cake. Now, when I first heard about this book, I rolled my eyes because I thought this was just another magical realism, foodie, whimsical, like water for chocolate knockoff. But I will say, I was surprised and color me impressed, guys. I actually ended up liking it, despite the fact that it has a 3.2 on Goodreads, which I don't understand. I thought it was great. The premise of the story is that a young girl suddenly realizes that she is able to gain insight into people by eating food that they make. And she learns things that she doesn't want to know. She can pick up on very slight emotions and basically know things about people that she's not supposed to know, things that people don't even know about themselves. When I first heard this, like I said, I thought it was a Like Water for Chocolate knockoff. And the plot of Like Water for Chocolate is that there is a woman who is able to transfer her emotions into the food that she makes, and other people experience those emotions. But in Like Water for Chocolate, there's a measure of control in it. The woman has to be overwhelmed with this emotion. There is a sense of control that she is the one inflicting her emotions onto people. Whereas in The Particular Sadness of Lemon Cake, it's a child protagonist. So one, she is a child, and two, she has no control over this. She is on the receiving end. She is the one being inflicted and receiving all of these emotions. And it's just an information overload. She doesn't understand. She is a child. She doesn't have the context to really, truly understand these emotions. So I thought all of that was just done so well. I really liked the writing. Of course, picking this up, I knew there was going to be really good food writing with descriptions and just the complexities of the emotions that she was tasting and the smallest things she was picking up. She would bite into something and basically know the whole history of the food she was eating and the farms that it came from. And I thought it was just great. But it wasn't just about that. It was about the complicated relationships going on within her family, the complications that come up when you find out things you aren't supposed to know. Basically, her trying to deal with these cards that she's been given and this power and this insight into people, and her growing up and trying to figure out what to do with it. I don't want to give any other plot lines away, so I'm really just going to leave it at that. But if you haven't read it, I really suggest you go pick it up if it sounds interesting to you. The second book I wanted to talk about is very different. It is Horns by Joe Hill. Horns is about the protagonist is Ig, and he is basically the pariah of his town because he was accused of raping and murdering his girlfriend after a public breakup. It is from his perspective, so you know that he didn't do it. There wasn't enough evidence to convict him, so people just go around basically assuming that he did did it, and hating him even more because they think he got away with it. And he's just kind of living under the shadow of this accusation. And, you know, he was never able to be exonerated, and it weighs on him, and he just is not loving his life at this point. He obviously misses his girlfriend very much. He loved her. And that is the story that we are introduced to. Ig wakes up one morning and feels his head, and he has what starts out as these 2 bumps on his head. And as he goes about the day and interacts with people, he realizes that the horns have powers, and that people start divulging their dark secrets to him. They are unable to lie to him, and that sometimes he can even convince them to do things. And so as he starts going through and becoming more aware of this power that he has, he is trying to use it to figure out what happened to his girlfriend and to basically bring her murder to justice. I loved this book, and it did deal a lot with, like, what do you do when you find out things about people that you do not want to find out about? I will say this particular thread was not as important as it was in the particular sadness of Lemon Cake, but I thought it added something to the story. But in Horns, that is just like a small piece of like a huge story. So it is really interesting just as this starts taking him over and he becomes really obsessed and really gives into this dark side and these powers. And so this was my second Joe Hill novel. The first I read was Nosferatu, and this one was my second. So far, I am loving Joe Hill. I don't know if I can say this, but I think I like him more than his dad, Stephen King. But I really liked Horns. There was a lot. I loved the way the story was split up into the different parts where we get all of the sides of the story and we get some added depth to it. There was a lot of symbolism that I thought was done well. And if there was anything I did not like about this story, it's that I lost interest in a small section where he talks about the past and we get a little bit more backstory. There was a little part where I lost interest. And two, there was so many stupid devil jokes and devil puns that I just started rolling my eyes whenever I saw one. I think there was a point where he says, like, where it says, you know, Ig did feel better, 666 times better. I was like, oh my gosh, like, please stop. But if you're fine with that and you can deal with bad jokes in writing, I will say go check it out. I have not seen the Daniel Radcliffe adaptation, so I cannot vouch for that or the accuracy or anything, but it is the same story. That movie was based on this story, in case you didn't know that. But I really liked it. Again, him dealing with finding out what people really think of him was a big part of the first half, basically, of him discovering his powers and going into these situations where he's going to friends and basically realizing what his friends like really think of him, and the people that he trusted that actually think that he killed his girlfriend, and just all the things that he is just so uncomfortable and doesn't know what to do and feels so alone and betrayed, was a huge part of the first half. And then in the story, he kind of definitely gives in more to the power and to the horns and lets it kind of overtake him, which was really interesting. So if you are into that, if you are into horror or Joe Hill, or that story sounds interesting to you in any way, I really suggest you pick it up. So far, I think it's my favorite Joe Hill novel, and I think a lot of people feel that way out of all the Joe Hill novels. This one seems to be the one that people like the most, so definitely go check it out. But anyway, guys, that was my double review. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye!